Hi, and welcome to Play the Ink. Today on the show we have composer Jin An and pianist Ting Luo. Jin An is the director of Ensemble Ari and a lecturer at UC Berkeley. She is also the music director for Shim Studio, teaching music for special needs students. She completed her Bachelor of Arts and Master of Music at Seoul National University and her PhD at UC Berkeley, where her teachers included Edmund Campion, Cindy Cox, David Wessel, Jorge Liederman, and Richard Felciano. Next we have Ting Luo. Ting Luo has curated and served as executive and artistic director for the multimedia music and art project New Arts Collaboration, collaborating with artists from composers to visual artists, creating and performing multimedia new piano works. Ting Luo obtained the Master of Music degree on solo piano performance from the Thornton School of Music at the University of Southern California. Throughout her piano career, she received instructions from legendary pianists such as Daniel Pollock, Roger Woodward, and Peter Takas. All right, thank you two for both being on the podcast, Play the Ink. And so today we have composer Jin An, and then we have Ting Luo, who is a pianist and a composer as well. And just we're going to be talking about their music and their collaboration and things like that. So the first question I always ask everybody on this for each of you individually is kind of how did you get started in music and what's your journey? And then we can talk about like what made you start composing, since you both compose and I believe both play piano as well, but you can correct me on that. So we can go with Ting first. So how did you get started in music?
My family is a musician family, and my grandfather's composer, and he composed mainly for classical music, and he's has like a professor like positions in the like music conservatory in my hometown. And my grandma is also like singing, like classical singing. And then so it's like a lot of like family members are doing classical music, like including like cello and also composition for other family members. So it's just natural for me to starting learning piano in a young age. And then after a few years, I think yeah, it's just like it just feels natural for me to getting into a professional study. So I started like from junior high school. I started to um it's like a similar to a affiliate of a music conservatory. So I start piano performance major there, and then high school it's always piano major, and then I enter that's a Shanghai Conservatory in Guangzhou, China for my undergrad, and then I had my graduate study in Los Angeles with Daniel Pollock for piano performance major. So that's how I have my like piano career. And then for composition, I started maybe this 1 or 2 years. Maybe it's I always do some like improvisation, and but I haven't like before I haven't really like write down notes and really started to really imagine the whole piece. So maybe it's related to pandemic, like we have more time at home, so I just started to kind of explore and started to learn those softwares, started to like listen and try to really put everything together.
Nice. Yeah, and from reading your website, I see that you know have composition, improvisation, and then interdisciplinary. So, can you go into what kind of interdisciplinary things that you work on, and how did you get into that? What inspired you to become interested in that?
Yeah. Um, so my project NAC New Arts Collaboration is also for interdisciplinary arts and with like music and visual arts and so on. So myself, in terms of my composition, I like to kind of expand beyond the acoustic piano. Like I'm interested in extended technique, piano technique. I'm interested in like bringing like electronic music and also like film recordings into my piano music, kind of having a background or kind of it feels like in that in that atmosphere or something. So that's what I interested. I still like to keep that kind of acoustic components there, but I like to kind of mixing things in my pieces.
Gotcha. So you're not just writing for Moog synthesizer or Rhodes piano or something like that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Very cool. So we can talk about maybe some more composition stuff later, but we can go to Jean and say what got you started in music, kind of the same questions, and see what you have to say.
So my mother was a piano teacher, so I started with piano first, and I just hated reading music. So I started like just memorizing and improvising instead of diligently reading the music, and that was how it started. So probably I was like age 5 or 4. Ever since then, I just wanted to be a composer and never had any other thought. So my path was very long and like, yes, sole composition. Like that was my only goal throughout my life.
Gotcha. So you never said, "Oh, I'll play piano as well." It was kind of just like just all the way.
Yeah, the piano. Yeah, piano was just like my pathway to my composition. I do accompany people, and I would play at a concert, but not like a concert pianist. It was my means to compose.
Great. And so where did you study as well, just for people and myself? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I grew up in Korea. So I studied in Korea. I went to music high school, and then I went to Seoul National University for undergrad and master's. And then I came to UC Berkeley for the doctorates. And I just happened to stay here in the Bay Area.
Great. And who were your teachers at UC Berkeley?
UC Berkeley, the mentors that I had, we rotate and we learned from all the teachers, but mostly it was Edmund Campion.
Oh, I know him.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think I actually did. Trying to think. I did an interview with him in Montreal. He came and hung out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I went to McGill University, so
oh, you did.
Yeah, so I was at
I did a summer English program at McGill.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What year? That's interesting. What years? I'm just wondering.
Long time ago, like prehistoric, like not even 2019 something.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
1999 or something like that. Yeah.
I get you. So yeah, it was 2011 to 2016. I lived there full time. So cool. Well, that's very nice. That's a good name.
Yeah.
So cool. So that makes sense too. So you're working with electronics because I'm pretty sure that Edmund does. Is that true statement?
Right. Yeah. He's like my guru. Like if you ask who inspired you to do anything, like it's Edmund Campion. Yeah.
Cool. Very nice. Interesting. Who are some of your influences in electronic music? Like for myself, I can think about like classical composition, who I think of electronic music that really influenced me, or then I can think of popular music, electronic music that did that. But if you could say like the top, I don't know, 3 composers or artists, it could be pop music as well, that really influenced you, what would you say? And we could start with Ting.
I feel, yeah, in terms of electronic music, I think that's everywhere, like pop music using kind of electronic music, and also like some people are doing like acoustic electronics music, and they're playing like synthesizer. And also I also would think about it's just like so many various ways to do electronic music. And then in terms of how I get into like having the piano project with electronic music, that idea is I listened to a few recordings by Christopher Serone, and he's also a collaborator in the project, and he's doing some very interesting music with like kind of sounds minimalism and classical too, and with electronics used there, which is very interesting. So I'm kind of I don't feel like I'm deeply influenced by anyone, but in terms of like my pieces, I feel it's not strict new music too. It's kind of somewhere around like few music, new age music, or minimalism, that kind of a mix. And then so that's how I think about like the influences. It's just like when I guess it's like when people grow up, it just you you just listen to all the music that's happening in your life, and you will actively to search some music, like where I listen to Christopher Serenade, and you also like can into a cafe or can into a like a restaurant and you listen to those music that they're playing. So those are kind of like conscious influence and unconscious influences, I guess.
No, that definitely makes sense. And I think that's interesting just to say there's been times where I was like, there's bands that I really was like into or whatever music. And I'm like, that and then I find out the originator of the sound like 40 years ago. And then you're like, oh, and then you can kind of see how it trickled out. So I see what you mean. Sometimes it's just a sound and you don't know exactly who is the originator of it, but you're like, there's some sort of style and I don't know where it came from, but I'm just influenced by it, like you said. So cool. So Jean, who would you say were for electronic, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah, for electronic music or music in general, as I said, definitely a lot from Edmund Campion. And it's I love his music, but I also love the way of his thinking and the way he researched and the way he accesses and get into the music, get into the sound. I think that is the most striking thing for me. Like when we start a project, like go find a different kind of sound, like. So just bring out the material and like we start talking about that, or like it can really just go to a different direction. But he showed me a way that music is not just about, because I started composition so early that whenever I think about either electronic music or whatever, it's like the first thing that comes up to my mind was like melody and rhythm, like the very traditional thoughts, like. Yeah, like that's how since I was doing it so long that I had these fixed mind. But I think he really helped me venture out into a new area, like start in a different place and start with research and start with just finding. And I think that was a big influence to me. And honestly, like, so I studied at UC Berkeley, and UC Berkeley has a great program in electronic music. It's called CINMAT, Center for New Music and Technology, and they do like the wildest thing. So if I bring my music, they're like, they wouldn't even call it electronic music, like it's just, they're so out there and they're just so crazy. Like I'm the most uncrazy person. Like I'm the most like normal person there. Yeah. So in a way, it's very intimidating sometimes. Like, what am I doing? Like I'm asking questions, but I think it just opened my mind and I had great access to different kind of sound. And now I'm at a stage that it's been such a long time since, I mean, I'm still teaching at Berkeley, but I'm not a student anymore. It's been such a long time. I think I'm more confident without thinking about those baggage about all the esoteric or the most like high tech things going on. Like, I think I am now more comfortable building my own language. Either it's electronics or not. Like I feel more free to do that.
I know what you mean. Sometimes like I have this thing. I'm a computer programmer, so I know when I use Max MSP, it ends up being an exercise in what I can do in Max rather than the music. So I think it's good that you keep it to the music. It only use it for what you need, for sure.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then Ting, what are some of your main influences, I guess, in piano? If we can talk about, we were just talking about composition, I guess, a lot, but maybe from a performance, who are some of your influences in piano, or like who are some people that you've looked up to and said, I want to play piano like this person?
Good question. So for me, I feel like since I get my like foundation piano training back in China, so the piano training there it's kind of technical heavy. Like people care about like how fast you play and how difficult the pieces you play. So that's kind of how I started piano training, and later I started to like learn other pieces than like Beethoven, Mozart. I started to learn like Impressionism, and I enjoyed that a lot. Like Ravel, Debussy, and they use different techniques to like approach like playing the piano. Sometimes it doesn't have to be like a really like racing up the fingers, that kind of technique. So it's really like open my mind to having kind of think about differently, think about the sound that like I can make on the piano rather than those like technical stuff. And I really like for pianists, I really like Horowitz, and I think he's also a kind of example of like it doesn't really matter like what kind of technique you're using. It's like about what kind of sound that you like to have and how to generate those sound on the piano. So it's like it's kind of giving me a different goal, like when I grew up as like studying the piano.
I was just thinking, as you said, Horowitz or technique, because even though I think one of my favorite, I'm not a pianist, but Glenn Gould, but that's because, I mean, his technique was kind of goofy, but man, he was really accurate, and he made the piano say things that I was like, wow. Like hearing him play Webern is like, that's what Webern should sound like. That's amazing, you know? So that's cool that you said there's people like that, where it's not just what can you make the piano do, not just how fast can you play on it. So now we can start talking about how you all have worked together, because I believe you have. That's why you're on. And so maybe we can just talk about maybe some notable projects that you both have worked together on. And then I think maybe we'll play a couple of them, and then we can talk about them as well.
Yeah, sure. So Jing and I had a collaboration, and we started the idea, I believe, back in 2020, and we bring in a video artist, Joe Ho. And so it's kind of 3 people teamwork to create the entire work. It's called Footsteps, and it's a piano with multimedia. And Jing also applied electronic music with the acoustic piano in the suite. So and it's very interesting to work with Jing, and because her, as we already talked about, her background has electronic, and she has been composing for established time. And Jo Ho is also amazing video artist. Her background is like video arts, architecture, and she also doing like, I believe that's called like AI machine learning visuals, which we have that for the last movements Mars. Yeah, so that's how we, and I remembered around that time it's still pandemic, so we're meeting each other over Zoom. It's like Joe's over in Singapore and Jin's in California. So we discussed and we talked, and we found the idea. And I also remember we talked about the surfaces. It's like Jin's thinking about what kind of surfaces for the title and also for music. So we had those we had the result for the pieces. We have snows, we have asphalts, and we have like crossroads. Those all like related to the kind of the surfaces and the sound on the surface, which is very interesting.
Yeah, so just as Ting said, we were at the very beginning, we didn't know what we could have gone to any direction. And I just had this thought because I was stuck in, and at the beginning of the pandemic, like people were really locked down and we were really stuck, like how religiously everyone was really literally at home, right? So I was stuck, and then I thought like through the pianist's hand, we can go to we can still travel. So that was the whole concept of this piece. So although we're in this tiny room, there's this pianist's hand, and through that we're going to travel. First, go to the snow and walk on the snow. So the pianist's hand gradually changes to a footstep on the snow, and then you go to the crossroad and go to a busy street, busy like city. Then you go to a sand and go to the seashore. Then you go to asphalt and you are running all around. And at the end, when I wanted to go really big, like exaggerate, like you can go even further. And I ended with Mars. So it is. And then at the end, it has these like loud door bang sound. Hey, wake up. You're just at home. Like kind of thing at the end. Yeah.
Get out of your daydream kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Great. Well, we'll play that right now.
다시는 걸음 아르키칼림지도
아르키칼림지도 눈이 오는지
All right, great. Yeah, and we can. Do we have that posted anywhere as well if people want to go listen to that afterwards?
Good question. I believe we have Snow on the YouTube, and then we also have an excerpt of Carsos, and we're looking for releasing a recording around after summer this year. So we're expecting to have the videos and the sound ready by then, and we'll post that on Facebook and Instagram and also website. So if people are interested, they can follow our Facebook, so they will know like when we will release the music.
Great. So yeah, we'll put that in the notes when we release this. So we broadcast this on YouTube, so we'll put it down in the notes below. Cool.
Cool. That sounds great.
Great. Thank you for letting us hear that. So you have a piece that you're going to place as well, Ting, that you composed, which is called Hypothesis. So
Yes.
Can you talk about the two movements that we're going to hear from that and just kind of how you came up with the conception of it?
Yeah, sure. So the entire suite is I like to present a kind of presence that like you are in that moment, and each moment could be different. For example, the first movement, Purified, is about simplicity. And it's kind of minimalism, and just have like you have a few music materials that's like kind of a circulating. And then the second movement, Brave, it's for acoustic piano with few recordings. And it's kind of, and both pieces are in collaboration with Lauren Weibo. In the first one, she created a scene that is like a landscape, like a beautiful landscape with water dropping and just continuing like water dropping in different shapes. And the second one, Brave, is her standing in a dark, kind of a dark place and with like bubbles around her. So it's kind of, it's like about darkness, loneliness, and that kind of feeling for in the Brave. So that would be these two movements that I'd like to play today.
Great. So then we'll listen to those right now. All right, great. Thank you for letting us listen to those. And as well, I guess we can ask if those are also available. We will put those links in the description. I usually like to ask composers and performers things like this. Maybe what's the difference between composing for yourself and composing for another performer? Because I've done some composition and I'm a percussionist, but I always find that composing for myself is so it's like I know my strengths and weaknesses and I know what I can get away with really easily. So I don't know if we could just talk about that and how do you approach it, and like who are maybe your favorite instruments to compose for, because it's more like what you play, or I don't know, just all of those kind of ideas. Maybe we could just talk about that. And Jean, maybe you can talk about that.
Okay, so I do play the piano, but mostly the pieces that I write for other pianists, and usually I'll say 100% they're better than me, and otherwise I won't ask them to play. And of course, a wonderful pianist like Ting, it was wonderful to have her. But I actually enjoy writing for piano because I have the piano right here, and I can actually always test it out myself, and I know what's possible, and like so it's actually fun. The part that I don't like about piano is I can immediately just play the bang on like the 10-note chord or something, big fat chord, but then to tediously write it down, it takes a lot of time. It's not a single melody, so that's a little bit. It takes a lot of times. That's a little bit downside, but I usually enjoy it, and I really like. In Ting's case, I really like, we did a lot of, I would ask her to record this much and record that much. So we did a lot of back and forth. And it was not just because of the sound, but it was because of her hand. Since we were using multimedia, I was using her hand position. So a lot of it was choreography. So can you put the angle there? And can you put the angle there? Can you put your hands there? And like, can you make your hand move like, even if it's the same sound, like more gracefully, like walking, or this kind of dialogue. So what I really was looking for was somebody who's really receptive and really like understand the visual and choreography of the hands. And Ting was definitely into that. And she was throwing me ideas also. And so I was really lucky to work with Ting on that.
That's great. I love the choreography of performance. And I think that's why I'm so glad we live in this time now where almost multimedia is everywhere. It's almost like you should have a video for every recording you do because it's so easy to do it. But now it's like we're bringing back into the theatricality of performing on a stage or something.
Definitely,
so
yeah.
That's very cool. I look forward to seeing that multimedia thing. So then I guess, Ting, the same question about that. What's kind of the difference you see in doing it for yourself or someone else?
From my perspective, most of the time I play for other people's works. So, like for example, I play Jane's work. I play like many other composers' commissions for Nearest collaboration. So for me, it feels like a adventure, or because it's new music. So every time you ask a composer to like let's say write a piece, but you don't really know like exactly how would be the outcome, and you're expecting to it, and then when you got the music, and it's always like I mean, makes me very happy to see the like final result of the piece, and every time I just like so surprised by like composers give they are like creating like such beautiful pieces for like included in the piano repertoires. I'm very happy to like working with composers, and I also enjoy actually like workshopping with composers. For example, I work with another composer, Brad Eastman, and his music also involve Max and SP. I think you mentioned that. So it's a lot of like computer, I guess, like computer coding, that kind of stuff involved. So we workshopping to like realize to find the solutions to having it performed in the concert hall. And and I also work with Jane for her piece to see how to realize it in the concert hall with the projector, with the like piano, the audio playback and piano performing all
like
together.
click track problem.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm very lucky to work with those like amazing composers, and also like having those piano pieces, like new piano pieces, like commission for a project. And yeah, I feel very grateful for that. And in terms of as composer, maybe I might be, yeah, different for me is I feel I always write for me. So I always write piano pieces for myself, and I will welcome other people to play. But like as the very original ideas, I always think I write for myself, and I write for me to perform it. And there's a occasion, for example, last year, Yumi Ko played one of my brief piece, Angular. It's like 2-3 minutes piece, and I feel that's very interesting. I really like her performance, and it sounds very nice, and sounds like it's like the beginning of like she received the piece, and I asked her if she can play like super clear, like crystal feeling, and she really did that so well, like much better than me. So I really, I really feel that's so much fun to working with performance when I wrote a piece. So I feel that's a great experience for me, and it's also very impressed for me to see see my piece realized by other people. Yeah, I guess like for Jing, it's a long way. Like since her young age, she started to compose. But for me, it's just I mean, it's just like 1 or 2 years. So yeah, I'm still and I'm feeling very lucky to have those like amazing people like performers and composers around me.
Cool. Very nice. Yeah, and I guess you feel like that's something you're going to continue to do. Maybe now that Unmi's played it, and you're like, oh wow, that was so much more maybe enlightening to see somebody else. Do you think that's something you're going to continue doing, or was it just a one time like, oh, that was nice to do?
Yeah, I would say it's continue. I definitely would like to have like performers play my pieces and hear different interpretations. It's so much inspiring for me, and it's even like it will influence like my later writing for piano. It's just like every time when I probably my idea is I like to be the first people to play my piece. So that's
Right.
why like every time when I have an idea for a piano piece, I always think about like when I play it, like how would it be?
So this is interesting, something I just thought of because I've written percussion pieces for myself to play as well. And what I think is interesting, and maybe this is the topic we can go on that I didn't write down before, but what is the difference in improvising and composing? Because I feel like I've written pieces where, I wrote all the notes out and it was perfect. Everything was written out. And then maybe I didn't get a time to practice it. So I was like, well, okay, well, I knew what I wanted. I knew the effect I wanted. I knew the idea. Yeah, maybe I hit a wrong chord, but it was still in the key or something like that. And sometimes it's interesting because I know the intent of what I'm trying to do. So what is the difference in, and if you both improvise, I just wondered, what's the difference in improvising and composing, and like, where do you kind of sit in there? Because I know then you could just have it be very open and say, be aleatoric and say, play this chord for 5 minutes, play this chord for 5 minutes. Okay, you're done.
I myself is not an improviser, but I do include, sometimes I do make it improvisatory, like certain kind of text in section, like limited improvisation. So controlled improvisation, I would say. And depending on the player, like I guess somebody like you, Zachary, if I ever write for you, like it's great. They can do way better than what I write. So I love writing for that. And again, I think that's when I became a little bit more confident about what I'm doing. Then I can I can relax more and give the freedom to the player. I think before I was more in control. I wanted to control more. But now I think most of the time I do have some element, at least if everything's written out about the dynamics or something, I give more freedom to the performer. And it's also a matter of how good that person is, but also if as far as I can communicate well with the player, I think it works well in that case. And in this piece that I worked with Ting, everything is like click track. Everything is very controlled, but there was a sense that like I would write things, but here, don't worry about the rhythm too much. Just pay attention to this kind of mood. So she was a little bit more relaxed and she could get more music out of it. I don't think I answered the right question, but that comes into my mind when I think about improvisation.
No, that's exactly what I thought, because it's like, it's more like, I even think about when I'm performing, you know, it's like, is it that I meticulously hit all these notes right and everything was perfect with the click, or did I get the general mood of the piece? And I think it used to be when I first started in like high school, it was like, you got to hit all the notes. And now the further I get along, it's like, well, did the point come across? Because I've totally, and maybe that's also listening to like standard repertoire of anything. You can hear somebody who's perfectly proficient on a piece and then hear somebody that, you know, that they hit a long raw notes, but man, they're like, that was the best performance I've ever heard of a piece.
Yeah.
So that's one improvisation. It's like, well, then just make it not be wrong notes, because then there's no wrong notes if it's improvised. Right. I don't know. So what do you think about that, Ting? Do you have anything to say on that topic?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Jing's thoughts. And I remember like one of the piece sent in Jing's 5-movement suite, there are a few passages from that piece, and Jing just told me that play the notes around those notes. I don't know if I say that right. Yeah, it's just like you can just play like fast notes. But if you hit wrong notes, that's totally fine. You can just play around those notes written. And then it sounds great. So it sounds like shimmering, which is exactly.
Oh yeah, for the beach, and it was evoking the sand sound. So it was high notes, and it really didn't matter which pitch you plays, especially in the very high pitch. It was more for the effect.
Yeah, that's a great experience. And I also play some graphic scores, and those are kind of there are like composers efforts, like they creating the graphics, but the rest are a kind of performance creation part too. Like it's kind of improvisational. So so it's like you kind of have to you have to like create your own like playing, and everyone play one graphic score would be different. So that's also kind of my improvisation experience. And also sometimes like when I start improvisation, I'm curious how Zach think of like starting your improvisation piece. Usually I would just think about anything, like for example I think about a sound, or maybe I think about a pattern of sound, and then I start improvisation and I just goes with what I think in that moment.
Very nice. Yeah, it's just interesting and then I guess you guys are both in California, so when you're talking about graphic scores, I always think of Mark Applebaum, the Metaphysics of Notation. Have you seen that one? Where it's almost like art rather than a score. It's beautiful, but that's what I think too. I think it's great too. Graphic scores are, I think that's how I got into it in classical music. You know, not jazz, but it's like play this piece and it's like a bunch of lines and you're like, what? What does that mean? I think usually the last couple questions are what's next. So what are any active projects? And I think we alluded to some and said some, but we can reiterate that. So what active projects do you have now, and what are some that are planned for the future that you know?
So I will be playing this coming Sunday, so probably it will miss this podcast. And after this one, I'll be going to Florida for the Contemporary Music Arts Project, and I'll be meeting like Yumiko and also you, Zach, and with other great musicians there, and we'll have that will be a presentation for New Arts Collaboration there, and I also performed in a concert for a few pieces by living composers. And I believe those composers will also be there. And I'm super excited. And another concert coming up is March 30th in Sacramento. And that's a concert with classical music and also new music. So there will be one commission in the Music at Noon concert in Sacramento by composer Daniel DeTochney. It's called Rachel and a Vocation at the Stone Garden. And also I myself will have a piece from A Sweet Green where I'll be premiering in that concert too. And also some of the NAC pieces, including Jean's piece, I programmed the Last Movement March in that concert too. Yeah. And and after these few events, I expecting to like recording and releasing the NAC works from 2021, and then I would keep working on the arts collaboration, and I would envision the other concert to be happening sometime next year. And then it will be a lot of work like coordination and finding the right artists. Yeah.
Okay, and awesome. So, and Jean, what are what's your plans coming up, and what collaborations and projects are you working on?
So I have a kayagum concert in Korea in April. So kayagum is a Korean zither instrument, and I happen to write a lot for kayagum. So I have a kayagum player who happened to like play a lot of my pieces on that whole recital. So I'm looking forward to that. And then after that, I'm currently writing. I should be writing 3 pieces. It's a cello and piano piece, and I have to write an orchestra piece also. And I also have a piece for dance and a couple of chamber ensemble. So I'm excited about that. That is about Animal Farm, which is a book I love, which is very relevant now, especially. And so I'm excited about that project.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to that. And, we can post links to that whenever that comes out on the Contemporary Art Music website. So I think that's all we have for today. So thank you both for coming on. Really appreciate your time and talking to you both. And Ting, I'll be seeing you at the festival.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward.